sort of general ladder decks. When you build it in a very sort of control-heavy style like Pavel's done, it means that your ban strategies are normally very different as opposed to the usual ban shaming out. But we are getting into the first game. It's going to be GeorgeC on the Hunter versus Pavel on the Druid.
Yeah, typically speaking, Druid's going to have an edge in this matchup. You know, they're just really good at controlling the board. They have such great removal to stop Hunter's threats and can oftentimes get ahead on the board early, you know, ramping the mana. It used to be kind of scary because of like the power level of High Main and the power level of Call of the Wild on 8, but now Call of the Wild doesn't come out until 9, and High Main, it usually isn't too big of a deal just because you can oftentimes establish a big enough board as Druid or ramp ahead enough in mana with things like Wild Growth and Nourish in conjunction with each other.
Yeah, I think one of the big differences as well is in the matchup, as the Hunter at least, I used to be happy with putting on early pressure, then guarantee some burn to end the game. But with players bringing Feral Rage or double Feral Rage and then Moonglade Portal or things from Raven Idols as well, suddenly you can't really rely on that strategy because they just boost themselves back out of range, and with no board after that, there's just not a lot you can do as the Hunter. Even a Call of the Wild won't be enough. And
taunts can oftentimes get in the way. We see a little bit of a different kind of strategy for Pavel here. He doesn't have Ancient of Wars in his deck, and he instead has Dark Arakoa. So a little bit more flexible of a taunt, can come down a little bit earlier, and maybe can come down with other minions on the board to avoid deadly shot situations. And it's not as big of an investment into deadly shot.
Yeah, it's not too bad at all, just getting that taunt out a little bit earlier. But you're going to see Pavel just start to do the usual, the grand plan for the Druid here is stop Hunter hitting you in the face and really reduce the board down. Yeah, and as you said, going into the Nourish next turn, he has 2 Azure Drakes and the second Wrath to be able to just deal with anything that comes out here. So I feel like Pavel's in a really strong position, although with double Houndmaster, GeorgeC's going to really want to hope this Fiery Bat lives.
Yeah, you may even consider just not even playing it. We see him thinking about it here, picking it up, putting it back down, kind of signaling to Pavel that he's thinking about something. So Pavel could kind of make a read on this once he sees if it comes out, if it is a Fiery Bat, maybe GeorgeC has a Houndmaster in his hand, kind of giving that away a little bit. And yeah, that kind of hesitation can really cost you in some of these situations, because he's thinking about saving it for next turn where he can play Fiery Bat and Houndmaster at the same time to try to guarantee the buff, and he doesn't end up just playing it out there. Turn 5 is a very populated turn from Druid. They have things like Nourish and Azure Drake, and sometimes even Druid of the Claw. We know in Pavel's deck right now, just Nourish and Azure Drake on that slot, but still 4 cards on that slot. I would really like to see Pavel go with Nourish for crystals here, and just, cycle the Wrath on the Fiery Bat or use a Hero Power on the Fiery Bat to get rid of it. GeorgeC kind of gave away some information there with that hesitation and the picking it up and putting it back down. And with 2 Azure Drakes in your hand, you have the ability to kind of reload after the fact. So it's just so powerful to get the crystals and start pushing out that early mana lead.
Yeah, and if you can get ahead whilst keeping the Hunter board relatively low, which is, he's done a really good job. He's only on 26, well, 25 after the bat, of course, but after, going into turn 4, only being on 25 and only having the Squire on the board, you're feeling pretty good as the Druid when you're moving up into an 8-mana turn to follow up. And now, with that Wolf coming down, he has the opportunity to just Wrath into Swipe if he really wants to clear it up, and then just force the reduction down onto the board state for GeorgeC. But he also just has the Drake to actually just put a minion on the board and just start battling for it in a minion fight, as opposed to just using up all the resources from the spells.
Yeah, he still has to be conscious about that Houndmaster. Definitely is something in the back of his mind, the threat of it for sure, and may see him react to it here with maybe a Living Roots on the Infested Wolf and a Hero Power down one of the 1/1s. Or you may see him just ignore it, I guess, and
yeah, I think he's just going to take his time, because one of the benefits he does have next turn is the second Azure Drake into Swipe, which is going to be able to deal with the at least the Houndmastered Wolf if it comes to it. But also even Houndmaster on this turn isn't too great for George in terms of just the Hunter playing towards its mana curve, right?
I mean,
it's
he's got
slightly
the coin,
off and it
so
slows him down.
You can fill it up with the Knife Juggler here. So you can go Knife Juggler, Coin Houndmaster, take the value trade, so it sets himself in a little bit better position against Swipe. But then Pavel's going to be able to react with, Swipe plus Wrath plus Hero Power and be totally fine with that. Pump up actually a really big Yogg if he wants it to as well. And, it still just has card draw to refill his hand. The Wrath will be drawing a card that turn. The Azure Drake can also draw a card. So just so much cycle, so much removal, and just being 4 mana ahead of your opponent.
Yeah, it's
absolutely
insane.
Nuts. Yeah, it's just Druid can get off to these disgusting starts, and they oftentimes win against other mid-range decks simply because they have more mana and better removal than some of the other
they can
mid-range
just
decks.
do more stuff than you can most turns. So we're going to see the trade go into there, try and get the juggle.
This is an interesting play by GeorgeC to try and help himself play around those sort of swipe scenarios. Now he's got more minions at staggered health totals. If he would have just, Houndmastered up the Infested Wolf, it would have been left at 1 health, making him extremely vulnerable to swipe plus hero power or swipe plus wrath. But in this way, he's able to kind of avoid a lot of the potential swipe scenarios. It's a really good play.
Yeah, and Pavel's in a position where he can still do a really good job of clearing most of the board out at least.
Yeah.
And, as you mentioned, he does have the backup plan of, because he's just used so many spells already, the worst case scenario, if he really needs something wacky to happen, he could just drop Yogg and then just hope for the best. So a really good backup plan for him at least. But with the Fandral Staghelm, probably the most singular powerful card in the Druid deck for the potential it can have, is going to be drawn, so it's given a few more options in terms of using the Wrath and the Living Roots to clear up some of the board, and then holding on to a GeorgeC swipe.
I think you might want to be considering holding on to a GeorgeC swipe simply because GeorgeC is going into the 6 mana turn, and your biggest fear...
What happens on 6 mana against Hunter Fiber?
It's the high main turn, so you really want to have something left in play after the fact. So Pavel, his mindset right now isn't how do I clear the board the best, because he had full clear options. His mindset is how do I make sure my opponent cannot play Savannah high main, and that's why he set up this awkward situation for GeorgeC where if GeorgeC has a removal spell, it's really great for him. He's able to kind of clear off the Azure Drake and keep on trucking, but that means he is unable to play Savannah high main, and that's priority number 1 for Pavel, since he doesn't have a great toolkit for answering it at the moment, is just make sure GeorgeC has to use a removal spell. Even if he gets a little bit of value out of the removal spell, you don't care. You have your advantage that can start snowballing. You just need to delay Savannah high main for just 1 more turn so you can really get your footing back on the board.
Yeah, and now he does have the option of just going Animal Companion Kill Command if he really wants. I feel like because the board isn't really flooded at all on Pavel's side, that Deadly Shot is very valuable to take down, say, an Arakoa, for example. So I really like this. See what the Animal Companion is first, because if it is a Huffer or Leark, he could actually just choose to hold on to the Kill Command and use the minion to trade.
Yeah, the one reason I really like using the minion to trade is you get so much value out of it, right? Like, Pavel has so much extra mana to be able to utilize his hero power, but GeorgeC is going to disagree here and just go in, push a little extra damage this way, and be really aggressive.
If he has to hero power it, right, it's an additional 4 damage, or 3 because you gain the armor anyway. So I don't mind that play at all from George, using the kill command to just keep the minion on the board. Do see Fandral come down now, and that sweet, sweet Wrath value, clearing up the Leok with no problems whatsoever, as well as drawing a card.
Yeah, and
pretty strong turn when the Hunter's on 2 cards.
Yeah, now Pavel secured a very large board. So even if there was a high main from GeorgeC's side, you can see how delaying it for a turn allows Pavel to set up for the ability to answer it the following turn, because he's able to milk his mana advantage for just another turn, which allows him to get just that much far ahead on the board.
Is this just a prep for Yogg? He just innovated out hero power. Now, why would you do that if you weren't going to Yogg? Because it's not under really any health threat for a start, and also excuse me, it's not turn 9, so it's not like he's wants all the health or wants to just weave in extra damage to set up lethal or avoid the Call of the Wild shenanigans.
I think it is mainly for Yogg. The Innervate's not doing a lot in his hand right now, and being able to hero power every turn could be extremely relevant, being able to push a little bit of extra damage, being able to gain a little bit of extra life. He saw GeorgeC go for that kill command play on his Azure Drake to push damage with a 4-1, which is extremely aggressive. Like, it's a very aggressive line of play. It uses resources pretty frivolously, and Pavel's most likely reading into that, being like, all right, my opponent's got damage in his hand. He's setting up for something evil here. So yeah, that's why he's kind of evil. That's why he's kind of like
he's evil because he wants to win the game.
Yeah, that's why he's kind of like taking that extra defensive line, innovating out the hero power, I believe. GeorgeC has a curve here. He can fill out his hand with the Unleash the Hounds plus the Houndmaster, and
I think he almost has to, because otherwise the Houndmaster is very, very dead in hand after. The odds when you continue to draw beasts that you can get value from is quite low. We're going to see the trade by the looks of things. Just going to a quick value trade there, taking down the 2/2, leaving the dog alive as a taunt as well. And he's already seen a Wrath. We've seen 2 Wrath swipes. We've seen a lot of the easy removal for this. But there's going to be a Living Roots with Fandral, so it's going to spawn 2 of the saplings. And look, this is just the power of Fandral living, basically. So many cards you're going to draw are going to get the double value, and that's, oh, I'll just kill off that, spawn 2 1/1s. 4 attack, 8 armor, and just keep going. And as you said, this is just continuing to fuel Yogg if he even needs it.
Yeah, at the moment he really doesn't need it, but he's going to have it ready in hand just in case Call of the Wild comes out. That's really the big trigger for it. And Fiery Bat, not the card you want to draw here. It's
Just going for the deadly shot to kill Fandral.
Yeah, and desperation plays here. He's able to take out the 3-2, which removes just as much attack power off the board as removing Fandral would. Only 6 cards remaining, 5 cards remaining in the deck, but even combo with Fandral.
Yeah, this just looks like it's going to close the game out. GeorgeC just couldn't get on the board early enough and fast enough.
He was on the board.
Yeah, he couldn't stay on the board.
Yeah, the problem was staying on the board. Yeah. So he was able to get on the board, you know, because Pavel has to originally surrender the board to be able to ramp up in mana.
Yeah.
But then Druid has so many great removal tools that they're able to use that extra mana that they've gained to take back the board while cycling cards, which is what makes them so devastatingly strong.
Yeah. And see the invisible Ragnaros!
Oh.
OP!
Whoa.
That did look like it hit twice, but it in fact only hit once.
Now that's a game-changer card right there. Now we're off to the races. Something interesting could happen this game for sure, and it's going to be interesting how Pavel wants to play it. Looks like he's going off to the races.
Ooh.
So the Ragnaros could end the game, unless he chooses here to, you know, swipe it and remove it, which I would like to see from him.
Yeah, you have an 8/8, right?
Yeah,
what's the problem?
set up lethal either way.
And
so
you've seen a deadly shot, so it's going to be fine regardless.
Yeah, and you have the 1/1. It's 50-50 on the deadly shot. So yeah, I really like removing it from Pavel's side. He needs Call of the Wild now to really stay in it for GeorgeC, and Invisible Call of the Wild would be just a clutch pickup.
Yeah, although can you attack the Misha if it's invisible?
Quick shot into
something.
Misha keeps him alive. Okay, and you know, if he just has a few more turns to get there. And this is where you can see the Innervate hero power from Pavel really paying off. 5 turns in advance, he innervated hero power and has hero powered every turn since. And it's making a very dramatic difference.
Yeah, I imagine we're just going to see hero power pass here, as there's not many just 1 cards. It would literally need to be quick shot into, I don't know what, because he doesn't even have Animal Companion left for another Misha at this point.
Well, bow would be pretty good. Quick shot into